The title of the talk today is Love This Way. And before I get into the details of Love This Way, I will acknowledge that this is an ambiguous statement. Now, Reverend Dave thinks that I am a fan of ambiguous statements, and in fact, that is correct. I am a fan of ambiguous statements. In fact, if you read Scripture, a lot of people find that it's filled with ambiguous statements. Because in a lot of Scripture, the stories could be historical, metaphorical, or metaphysical, and they don't tell you which one it is on any of the particular stories. So something as simple as love this way can be taken in lots of different ways. And as I was getting ready for this talk, there was actually somebody on the radio this week who came out with an example of one of those great ambiguous statements. If the baby won't drink the milk, boil it. So that's either parenting advice or conspiracy to commit murder, and it depends on how you interpret it. So Love This Way could be about a self-help book. It could be, here are the 10 steps to love. Love this way and you will be fine. Everything will be okay. I will tell you how to do it. All you got to do is trust me. Love this way. All is well. Good luck with that. I don't think it necessarily works that way. There's a lot more nuance in the way that love actually works and how to get to love. So there are some people who say, love this way. So, I got love over here. You come over here. Do what I say. Get into my boogie. It's going to be my church or my commune or my whatever it is. And as long as you come over here, if you love this way, then we'll all be fine. That's the neon sign. Love this way. But I don't really think that's the way it works. To me, it's more about where we are now and where we're headed. Because in whatever situation we're in, wherever we are, we can turn ourselves towards love. What would bring more love, more joy, more good, more harmony, more balance, more peace, more prosperity, more health and vitality, more of whatever good we're looking for into the situation? And that's the way we want to be pointing. That's the direction of love for us in that moment, in that experience. And the situation, the circumstance that we're in, actually changes the direction that we want to point, the way that we want to be experiencing that. Because love shows up in all sorts of different ways. It's sort of the grand ambiguity of this whole philosophy, is that we start out every practical prayer, and in fact the whole philosophy is based on the idea that there is only love. Everything is love. There is one love. That love is spirit, nature, God, consciousness, intelligence, whatever it is we want to call it. There is only that. And it's showing up in all of these different ways. It's showing up as me. It's showing up as each one of us here. It's showing up as all of the planets. It's showing up as all of the plants. It's showing up as all of the people who we find to be delightful, and also the people who we find to be completely annoying and, quite frankly, wrong. If it's all love, then what are we looking for? If it's all love, then we already have it. And that's, on the one hand, that is perfectly true. Since this is all love, since it's all good, there's a blessing in everything. There's a blessing in every experience and whatever it is that we have going on. Love this way means that this way that I'm living now is love. And sometimes it's really obvious. On a bright, sunny spring day, it's really easy to see God. Sometimes in the middle of the hurricane, it's less easy to see that bright light of gift and good. But it's always there. So the idea is to understand that our experience is variable. We can experience a huge range of things. In fact, your life, as I've said before, is a range from the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and you can pick one, or if you are one of those people who has a catalog, that's okay, of the worst thing or things that have ever happened to you. And on the other end of the spectrum is the best thing, or the best things that have ever happened to you. And in engineering terms, that's your dynamic range. In audio, that's the softest sound or the loudest sound. In photography or visual arts, it's the darkest to the lightest. That's the range that you have. Some people have different ranges. We look at a color and we see whatever color it is that we're looking at, and actually there's a whole optical thing that's going on inside of our eyes and inside of our brains that lets us perceive the color. There are some creatures that can see a much wider range of colors and much more subtle colors than we can see. So when the dog looks at something red, does the dog see red? Well, on the one hand, yes, because red is this wavelength of light, and that's the wavelengths the dog is seeing it. Is the dog seeing it the same way that I am? Absolutely not. Dog has different equipment. So the perception that the dog has is going to be the dog's. It's mostly of concern to the dog. I don't need to keep myself up at night wondering what the dog sees when it sees an apple or a fire truck or my red car. The experience is going to be different, and it's based on who we are and where we are and what we're perceiving and what our intention is in the situation. You guys have probably heard about the Nobel Prize. The big one is the Nobel Peace Prize. And almost everybody in the world knows about the Nobel Prizes. A smaller group of people understands who Alfred Nobel was and why the Nobel Prizes exist. I don't even know if he was a doctor. Alfred Nobel invented dynamite, among other things. He was a chemist and a businessman and an inventor, and his big invention was dynamite. So why did the dynamite guy have the Peace Prize? What's up with that? Well, it was a mistake. Not his mistake. His brother died, and the newspaper in France got it wrong. And so they wrote his obituary. They wrote Alfred Nobel's obituary and claimed that he was the world's biggest killer because of dynamite, because he had brought that into experience. So here is this monster. And he looked at his preview of his obituary and he said, that's not the story. That's not the whole story of who I am. So he bequeathed his entire fortune to these Nobel Prizes, to these Peace Prizes, the Peace Prize and the 5 other Nobel Prizes. And the idea was he wanted to be remembered as somebody who did something other than just invent dynamite. So regardless of where we are on our path in our story, we get to choose where we want to go next. Is dynamite a good thing or a bad thing? Well, obviously the newspaper in France thought it was bad because, dynamite has been used to kill lots and lots of people. And it is a fabulously powerful construction tool. None of the interstates that you drive up and down could have been created without dynamite, because we need to be able to get rid of the rocks that are in the way so we can have a nice flat stretch of road. It's a tool. It's like a knife, a scalpel. A scalpel in the hands of a talented surgeon can bring a new experience of life, of joy, of health, of vitality to somebody. And used improperly or in the wrong way, it can cause mayhem and destruction and death. It's not the tool. You can't look at the scalpel and call it good or bad. You can't look at dynamite and call it good or bad. Dynamite is dynamite. And it can be used for whatever purposes the person wielding it is intending. Okay, well, we started out with there's only love, and this is kind of getting complicated now. And at the beginning of a celebration every week, we say that there's one power, love, intelligence that creates everything. And we say power, love, intelligence for a couple of reasons. Because everybody understands usually that we mean God, and we're not saying specifically God, because some people call it spirit, some people call it nature, some people call it Big D. Whatever it is that we call it, it's to be able to identify that creative power, that creative process, that creative energy that's sourced all of this. That creative force that's continuing to unfold through everything. So we say there's one power, love, intelligence that creates everything. And that power, love, intelligence thing is kind of talking about the triune nature of the creative process itself. And this is something we get into in our classes, and we dive deep into as the classes go along. Because there's this one infinite power, the Creator. In the beginning there was darkness and void, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. So what that tells us is that in addition to the darkness and void, there was God. There was darkness and void and God. And God said, let there be light. And out of the nothingness, there was nothing but God. Out of that was created all of this. Now you can call that the Genesis story, you can call that the Big Bang. It's just different ways of explaining it. If you're scientifically minded and you don't want to say that 6,000 years ago there was this magical Garden of Eden thing, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your version of the creation story is. If you read the beginning of the Bible, the beginning of Genesis there, with the eye towards how would I explain the Big Bang without any of the language of the Big Bang, you might start with, in the beginning there was darkness and void, and the infinite said, bang. And part of it is ambiguity, because there's nothing that's crystal clear pretty much anywhere. Even the stuff that is crystal clear in the Bible we misunderstand. Like when Jesus said, all this I do, you can do, and more. The people who have said that we can't do what Jesus did because Jesus is better than us, Jesus is the great exception, we need to live our lives through Jesus, and what Jesus said was, everything I'm doing you can do. I am as human as you are, I am as divine as you are, everything that I am, you are as well, everything I do, you can do as well. And then we can boil the baby. Because we are not forced to understand in a particular way. We are free to choose. We're free to choose the experience that we're having, free to choose the path that we want to be on. That's why people can use dynamite to do things that other people don't like, and we want to stop them. There's a fun game that has caused more bitterness amongst family members probably than any other. It's called Monopoly. Anybody play Monopoly? Yeah. And did you find that Monopoly is basically just a way of having an argument that lasts for generations? Yeah. The way that we play Monopoly, and the current version of Monopoly that's been around since I think the 1920s or 30s, is that you go and you try and bankrupt everyone else so that you're the winner. There's a winner and a loser. And the part that nobody realizes is, first of all, the guy who's winning, everyone else is pissed off at him. And as soon as they win, they're alone. There's nobody left to play with, because everybody else has been defeated and left the board. Interesting little fact. When the game was introduced, there were two versions of the game. The Monopoly version that we're playing now, where what you're trying to do is amass property and wealth and take it away from other people and charge, and the game that you're familiar with. And there was another cooperative version, where everybody took part and participated in the same economy, and it was much more cooperative. And what happened is, as everybody went past go, everybody got more and more and more. So everybody's building houses, and everybody's having property, and everybody's paying their share, and it continues to grow that way. Interesting that when our society chose one game to keep playing, it's the one that has all of the excitement and the anger and those bitter Thanksgiving celebrations many, many, many years later. And with everything that we're doing, we can choose. So whatever the situation is that I happen to be in, I am always free to look at where I am now, let go of my assumption that whatever it was that I was thinking previously was right. It goes back to what James Mellon says, I know nothing, now what can I know? Let's assume that all of the things that I'm right about are off the table. Let's assume that everything that I previously claimed or insisted upon is now negotiable. What do I want to do now? If I don't need to stick to those things, if they're not necessarily true. So I get to examine them. Are they serving me? Let go of that. It's like breathing out. It's like I have all of these things that I've always said that I wanted to do or I wanted to be. Or let it go. If I don't have to do that, if I don't have to be that, if I don't have to follow the path that I've said I'm following, that I might have been following, or I don't have to stay on the path that I said I wanted to be following, even though I haven't been anywhere close to that for years. If I let go of all my attachment to the things that I've been saying, basically, if I put down my baggage, if I'm free to put down all of my baggage and no longer have to carry it, is there anything that I want to pick up and take with me anyhow? If I've been on this path heading in this direction, do I want to keep going that way? Is that going to bring more love into my life? Can I clearly and openly say, love this way, and follow the signs towards love? Or am I going to say, I'm no longer attached to this that hasn't been working for me, I'm going over this way? Because we're all free to choose. At every moment we're free to choose. It's the little reminder that the Creator gave us, is we got this breath, and every breath is brand new. And sometimes you're doing yoga, you're doing meditations, you're focusing on your breath. Everybody take a deep breath in now. A deep breath out. I can't stress to you how important it is to continue breathing. People worry about, where am I going to live? Where's my retirement savings? How am I going to be able to get transportation? Where's the food going to be coming from? Water. But without breath, you got a couple of minutes. And we take it for granted. And that's a good news and a bad news thing. Why do we take our breath for granted when it's that important? Because we have it. Because in this moment we are supplied with everything that we need so that we can have that next breath. Take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. And the same power that created everything, that created us and created the atmosphere that has the oxygen that's feeding us when we take that breath in, created everything else too. So if what we want to have in our life is prosperity, it's an infinitely abundant universe. We can set our intention and know that our love is in that direction, and set out to experiencing that life of greater prosperity and abundant living. If I had $2 million in the bank, I'd be set for life. Bill Gates had $2 million in the bank, he'd be ruined. It's not the $2 million. It's the perspective on that. And there are people who have millions and millions or billions of dollars and feel like they need more. They don't have enough. They need to grab for more and more and more. And if that's the direction of love for them, then great. And if that's just because they're afraid of not being good enough because they don't have whatever it is that they don't have, they're not pointing towards love. They're running away from fear. And in the same way that we are filled and fed with that next breath every moment, all of the good that we are seeking is seeking us, and we can have all that good. We can move into that next experience of joy, of harmony, of health, of peace. We had a situation where there's antagonism that's been going on forever and ever and ever, and suddenly something changes, and then it's okay. Sometimes it's cataclysmic events. Sometimes as a minister, people will be going through a process with a family member who's in the process of dying, making their transition into whatever is coming next. And there's so much conflict in the family, and there's so much fear, and there's so much unresolved business. And then what happens as the result of that process, as grandma makes her transition, as the patriarch of the family is no longer at the helm, the family reforms and rearranges itself. And the people who had been fighting previously are now connecting because they're carrying the torch. Or because of whatever the reason happens to be. I've seen it happen in lots and lots of different ways. Yes, grandma died, and love is unfolding. Because that love that we thought we needed grandma for is actually in us. And now we get to own it. And now we get to share it. And now we get to walk down the path as though we're walking in grandma's shoes. And that spreads out. That's evolution. That's how that goodness that was in grandma isn't just in grandma. That gets handed down generation to generation to generation. And we get to be that love. We get to be that goodness as well. It can be the sort of thing that's really subtle and takes a long time, and there's lots of angst and worry and conflict. Or it can be as simple as seeing an erroneous obituary and say, that's not the truth of who I am, and take a different path. And be the guy who's remembered for inventing the Nobel Prize. No one is going to tell you which way to go to get to love. If they do, they might be giving you valuable input, or trying to sell you something, or trying to control you. So there's input that's coming from the people who are telling you what you can do to get to love. What I'm going to tell you is to look within, to get that answer from inside of yourself. There is a still small voice. It is the infinite mind, that creative power that created everything, that continues to create everything through us, and as us, and with us, and in us. That divine creative power is in everything. It's not like it just stops because it got to you. That infinite creative power is inside of everyone. And make it sound simple. All you got to do is let the rest of it go and open yourself to what that invitation is for next. Which way is love for me now? And the guidance arrives. Love this way. And accept it. Be that love and be that light because you deserve it. And I am looking forward to that next chapter in your story. So it is. Thank you.
So.